Hi friends, today we are going to do lesson 9.6 of your workbook. This lesson is on modeling equivalent fractions. So you're going to need a couple things. So I'm going to tell you what you need, then pause the video and go get them. So you need page 539 in your workbook. You need your pencil. You need a crayon or a colored pencil, and you're going to need a blank piece of paper from your teacher. All right, so today we are talking about equivalent fractions. Two or more fractions that name the same amount are called equivalent fractions. So we're going to use a sheet of paper today to model fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to fold our paper in half. So we're going to fold it hamburger style. Go ahead and fold it in half. And then we're going to open it back up. So you should have a paper with a folded line right down the middle. All right, so how many parts did we just create? We have one on this side and one on this side. So let's go to our workbook page. We just created 2 equal parts. Each part represents 1/2 of our paper. So we are going to write here, each part represents 1 out of 2 parts. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to take your crayon, and we are just going to lightly shade half of our paper. So right on the side of that one line that we creased, remember we're not in art class, so it does not have to be perfect. We just want to show that we can identify one of these halves. All right, so I've got 1/2 shaded, 1/2 not. Now we're going to label each side with 1/2. Because this side represents 1/2, and this side represents 1/2. All right, so we have one piece of paper split into 2 halves. Next, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to fold it one more time. So let's fold it in half hamburger style, right along that line that you already creased, and then we're going to fold the bottom up to the top so that we have created fourths. So let's crease it at the bottom, crease it on the side, and then go ahead and open it up. So now how many equal parts did we create? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go to our workbook. We now created 4 equal parts. So each part of this paper represents 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So that would be the fraction 1/4, because each part is 1/4 of the paper. Now I want you to take a look at these shaded parts. We've got 1/4 here. We've got 1/4 here. We've got 1/4 here. And we've got 1/4 here. Now, we're trying to find a fraction that's equal to 1/2. So let's just take a look at this shaded part. And I want you to see how many fourths it takes to equal 1/2. So 1/2 is shaded, and we have 1/4. 2/4 are equal to 1/2. So we have 1/2 is equal to 2/4. Okay, because we have 2 parts, 2/4 and 1/2. All right, now we're going to go one step further, and we're going to fold the paper 3 times. So we're going to fold it along that first crease, fold it along that second crease, and we're going to fold it again from left to right. So now we have a little piece of paper that looks like this, and then you guessed it, we're going to go ahead and open it back up. Okay, so now how many parts did I create? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So each section of this now is going to represent 1/8, because we have 8 parts, and we're talking about 1 out of the 8 parts. So go ahead and label all your 8s with the fraction 1/8. Okie dokie. So we've got 8 8s. We got our whole paper divided into 8 8 8s. Now we need to find the eighths fraction that is equivalent to 1/2. So again, we're just looking at the part that's shaded. So we said 1/2 was equal to 2/4. How many eighths does it take to make up a half? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 eighths. So our fraction would be 4 eighths. So we just made 8 equal parts, going back to our workbook page. Each part represented 1/8 of our paper. Now, the fractions that are equivalent to 1/2, we've got 1/2, 2/4, so I'm going to write 2/4, and we've got 4 eighths. So all of these fractions are equal or equivalent to 1/2. Now let's go ahead and flip our paper over, flip the page. It says explain how many 1/8 parts are equivalent to 1/4 part on your paper. So basically, now we're just looking at 1/4. So that is this chunk of paper. Let's figure out how many eighths are equal to that 1/4. We've got 1, 2 eighths. Okay, so it says how many 1/8 parts are equivalent to 1/4 part. So we're going to write that it would take 2 1/8 parts to make 1/4, because it would take 2 eighths to equal this whole section of 1/4. All right, now we're going to ask some questions and dig a little deeper. So the first question says, what did you notice about how the numerators changed for the shaded parts as you folded the paper? All right, so if we're talking about the shaded parts, the numerators started getting larger because we went from 1/2 to 2/4 to 4 eighths. So our numerators got larger. We're going to write that down. Numerators got larger. And what does this tell you about the change in the number of parts? So what it's asking us is, what does it tell you about the change in the number of parts that it took to equal the fraction before? So basically, as our numerators got larger, that tells us that it took more parts to make up that fraction. So as the numerators got larger, the number of parts increased. That's what we're going to write down. The number of parts increased. Now it's going to talk about the denominators. How did the denominators change for the shaded part as you folded? If we look here, our denominators were doubling. We went from 2 to 4 to 8. So as we folded the paper, the denominators doubled. So we're just going to write they doubled. And when the denominator gets bigger and bigger, that tells us that the size of the parts are getting smaller and smaller, right? Because when we talk about 1/2, we have a huge chunk. But when we double it to 1/4, we get 2 smaller chunks. Then when we double it to get 1/8, we get 2 even smaller chunks. So as we change the size, as the denominators changed, the size of the parts got smaller. So we're just going to write size of parts got smaller. All right, now we're going to jump down here quick to this making connections part. And this just wants us to use a number line to make equivalent fractions. So it says find a fraction equivalent to 2/3. So the first step is to draw a point on the number line to represent the distance 2/3. So locate 2/3 on your number line, and we're going to put a dot there. There is 2/3. Okay? Then it says use fraction strips to divide the number line into 6. At the end of each strip, draw a mark on the number line and label the mark to show 6. All right, so basically all we need is a line in between each section of thirds to make 6s. So we've got 0/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6. So now we need to identify the fraction that names the same point as 2/3. Well, the same point as 2/3 would be the fraction 4/6. So 2/3 is equal to 4/6. So that's two ways to find equivalent fractions. We can use a paper, but we can also use a number line. All right, go ahead and move on to the next step.